A Trump supporter that lost her job directly because of Donald Trump's policies now says she regrets her vote, and she is going public telling anybody that will listen. Now, this is a federal worker that lost her job directly because of DOJ cuts. Take a listen to what she has to say now.
You voted for Donald Trump.
I did.
Do you regret that vote?
Yes, I do. To cut the knees out of the working class Americans just doesn't make sense to me. I expected more from President Donald Trump.
Yeah, she expected more. And what she really means there is, I didn't expect him to come after me. He was only supposed to go after other people. We were supposed to own the libs. We were supposed to go after the people that didn't like Trump, not your supporters. And now she is in the find out phase, that she too is being affected. But the story actually gets much worse for her, unfortunately, as since coming out and going public with this, her house has been vandalized. She has been receiving different kind of threats. It's really turned her world upside down, from not only losing her job and getting in the find out phase, but now losing her friends because she's going against Trump.
Oh no! Another Trump cultist just got screwed over by his orange God King. I just came across a tweet posted by a Trump cultist, and he is just whining and freaking out and panicked because he and his wife just found out that Donald Trump screwed them over. Let me read what he wrote. All caps. Attention! Please help! President Trump and Ted Cruz. My wife is a nurse and was recently hired by the VA. Our home is packed up. We have a new home. We spent thousands to move our family from Fort Worth to Waco. Following Trump's hiring freeze executive order, the VA rescinded her job offer. Oh, no. My wife is in tears and inconsolable, and my family is devastated. It has been my wife's dream to work with needy disabled veterans. I'm a disabled vet. Now our home is lost, with no clear path of what to do. Her job was to start in 2 weeks. We are all huge Trump supporters, and I know this was an unintended consequence. I'm sure veterans medical care professionals were not the target of this executive order. Please help get this message to the White House so that President Trump can fix this error. Veterans need not be affected because of out-of-control government spending elsewhere. Please help retweet this so Donald Trump is made aware. We need your help. Aw, that's so sad.
That's so funny. They thought they were voting to hurt others, but now the pain has arrived at their own doorfront. Policies do not ask who you voted for before they affect your paycheck. Rising costs do not care about your campaign heart, and layoffs do not stop to check about your party registration. They affect everybody, but many won't, but they did listen. So let's have a look.
What was it like for you when you got the news that you were being let go?
It was really hard. I was on the phone with my best friend, Kaylee, at the time, and we were just discussing her life and how things were going, and I looked at my phone and I had gotten a text from our union rep, and he told me that I was going to be fired the next day. And I told her, I have to go. I'm getting fired tomorrow. And my heart just sank, and I had a huge pit in my stomach, and nobody wants to hear that news. It's not something that I'd wish on anyone. And it's something really hard to go through. It's hard from my perspective to approach the current administration with hope. I've been dealing with infertility now for about a year. I've had multiple surgeries in my life. So, going into the voting booth, the main thing on my mind was the same thing I'd been thinking about for the past 11 months. And it was, I want to be a mom. And women who have gone through that experience, that heartbreaking feeling of wanting something that you might never have, they understand how much of your time is taken up with those thoughts and how overwhelming and lonely it can feel. So as someone who is more of a swing voter, sometimes that's what it comes down to, is those single issues.
Riley, do you now regret the way you voted for Trump?
I do feel regret, and I've had a lot of tumultuous thoughts about that day in the election booth. When you're voting on something that affects you so personally, it's really easy to get tunnel vision, especially in a voting booth when you're staring at, you have two options, right? I mean, it's not like you're given an endless amount of options to achieve your goals. And so afterwards, when I thought maybe this is my chance, I also had to come to terms with the fact that I was likely going to be a part of, taking chances away from other groups of people, and that's never sat well with me.
This person voted for Trump and lost his job, and I genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, do not give a fuck. You only care now because it's affecting you. I'm so sorry. You didn't care when it was gonna affect thousands of minorities, women, LGBTQ plus people. You didn't care, and now you're suffering the consequences because that man has shown you who he was through and through for the last several years. And instead of doing some research or picking up a book or looking at another news outlet besides Fox News, you decided to elect this man. And I'm so sorry he's affecting you as a straight white man. Imagine how the rest of us feel. Like,
If you could say anything to President Trump now, what would you say?
I expected better from you. I really did. I expected that you would do what was right and cut waste and fraud and all of those things that you promised us before we elected you in office, but you're not doing that. You're creating a disaster, and I don't know what America's going to look like if this continues.
Did you ever think that your job would be impacted in a Trump administration?
No, absolutely not.
Jennifer Piggott was abruptly fired from her job at the Treasury Department's Bureau of Fiscal Service here in Parkersburg, West Virginia, along with 124 other probationary employees. She'd voted for Donald Trump and thought her government job would be safe.
But to cut the knees out of the working class Americans just doesn't make sense to me. It's, what's the checking account look like, babe? We went through our list of items on our budget and said, what can we get rid of? And we've gotten rid of all of those things, including cable. I had my last review on the 31st of January, and I had the highest rating that you can get on a review, less than 21 days before I was terminated for my performance.
On top of losing her job, Jennifer is facing backlash from both Democrats and Republicans for speaking out. She's received death threats and more.
Our home's been egged. They've hacked my Instagram and posted horrible things about my deceased mother.
This isn't what I voted for. I voted for criminals to get out, not just every person that actually wants to work and actually do their jobs and also help build a community in these parts.
So if you haven't heard by now, Homeland Security raided all of the Zips locations in the Valley, and it's people like the one in the video who apparently just started working at one of the locations as a waiter and a bartender that makes you really think. Because he said, this is not what I voted for. Now, of course, it's not what he voted for because now he's being affected by it. He may no longer have a job. He did vote, however, for what President Trump was preaching all along the campaign trail, that he'd enact the largest mass deportations in the history of the United States. But what a coincidence that when a reporter or a member of the camera crew for ABC 15 decides to interview that guy, he somehow has decided to have compassion. Give me a break. It's not compassion. He's trying to garner empathy that he may be out of a job, but he got exactly what he voted for. Funny how it's always the little guy voting in the interest of the super rich.
When that's gone, I have no more revenue. I cannot pay my employees. I cannot pay my bills. I cannot pay the loans, which I have leveraged my house against.
And you would absolutely vote for Trump again if it didn't affect you. These people must be smoking sheetrock if they think they're going to garner sympathy for simply voting against themselves. Pull yourself up by the goddamn bootstraps. I'm tired of the victim mentality of people acting like they don't understand what was going to happen when Donald Trump became president. He was on The Apprentice. He's a shamster. He's a swindler. The fact that you're trying to explain how you were so hoodwinked, duped, bamboozled by a tangerine is absolutely mind-blowing. Racism is expensive. Bigotry is expensive. And what they don't tell the poor Caucasians in America is that racism was only created to make you leave the rich white folks alone. That's it. Allegedly, he comes from a long line of pimps and scammers. Pimps and scammers had to file bankruptcy multiple times. Businesses went under, and you thought that this was going to be a benefit for your life. And the sad part is, financially, I actually fall into the group of people who would get a financial boost, but I am not ignorant enough to sink everybody else's ship in order for me to float. And that is the difference when you actually have humanity.
Let's talk about the Trump supporters that are losing their jobs. Last night I was out in Chicago and these three guys started talking to me and they were all from Naperville. And they asked what I did for work and I said, oh, like I make educational content. And the guy was like, oh, are you one of those like liberals? Like, are you one of those like lefties? And he was so serious. Like he just continued to like mock me and make fun of my content. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna leave this conversation. And he goes, yeah, it's because of you guys that my mom just lost her job. And I was intrigued. I was like, why did your mom lose her job? What did she do for work? And he goes, oh, well, she was in the military. She's a veteran, but then she was working at this office for the last few years and they just let her go. I look him dead in the face. I'm like, do you think your mom was a DEI hire? Because veterans are a protected class. And now that they don't have to hire her anymore, then they let her go. He goes, that's so true. He doesn't believe me. He looks it up and just the color just like drains from his face. And the guy with him was a research assistant after just graduating from university. And his position was just terminated because of lack of federal funding from the federal government. Which is thanks to fucking Trump. So newsflash, DEI doesn't just mean black people. So in fact, what's happening on a federal level is going to affect you too. You aren't special just because you're white. Karma's getting them. Okay, bye.
The United States has lost over 800,000 jobs this year so far under the Trump administration, and that is the most jobs lost from January to July since 2020. And remember who was president back then? Donald Trump. Donald Trump is so mad about the jobs report that he's now claiming that it was rigged. Everything that he doesn't like is rigged. And by the way, the job report was not rigged. We thought we'd gain over 100,000 jobs this July. We didn't. It was closer to 70,000. The economy is slowing. People are losing work. Manufacturing jobs are laying off people because of tariffs. And things could get worse. Tariffs are about to increase for so many different countries. The list goes on and on. And by the way, Donald Trump is threatening tariffs with countries just in the middle of the night, it seems. This is absolutely insanity. I know there's one job I'd like to see lost, though. I'd like to see Donald Trump removed from office. He is a liability to the well-being of our nation. He is an economy killer. This dude destroyed our economy in 2020, and he's doing it again.
I'm seeing more and more people online saying, well, I voted for Trump, but I didn't vote to lose my job, and I didn't vote for a global trade war, and I didn't vote for Elon Musk to run amok in the government, slashing agencies and cutting jobs, and I didn't vote to see America's allies cast aside. Oh, what the fuck are you talking about? Of course you voted for that. You were perfectly happy to see all that happen as long as it didn't happen to you. And now that the leopard is eating your face, suddenly you've changed your tune. Well, you get no sympathy from me. You voted for that. You wanted that. So you sit back and enjoy the fruits of your labor. I don't care what happens to you. I just want you to feel the pain that you brought on yourself, because that is the only way you can learn.
Too many people vote emotionally instead of practically. They vote based on resentment instead of policy. They vote based on slogans instead of facts. They vote thinking that only their enemies are going to be affected. But politics is not a game, you know. It shapes the economy, healthcare, jobs, education, immigration, you know. It affects everyday life. And when people vote mainly to hurt others, they only end up hurting themselves, you know. Some voters believed in promises that sounded so simple. Bring back jobs overnight, lower prices instantly, you know, fix everything fast. But real leadership requires planning, discipline, honesty, and competence, you know. Loud speeches cannot replace good policy. Blame cannot replace solutions, you know. Now many are not discovering that sharing for division does not pay the mortgages, you know. Owning the lips does not buy groceries, and anger does not build a future. This is why so many people they feel little sympathy for them, because they were warned by everybody. Yet many, they refuse to listen. They dismiss those warnings. The real lesson is that citizens must think beyond race, tribe, grievance when they vote, because when you support cruelty, thinking that it will only affect someone else, don't be shocked when cruelty expands, When you support bad leadership because it entertains you, don't be shocked when incompetence reaches your own life. A nation cannot thrive when voters are motivated by hate, or by punishing others. It cannot move forward when lies matter more than the truth. And it cannot stay strong when the people rather see their neighbors suffer than work together, People must ask questions. How are these policies going to affect my healthcare, my future, my job, my everyday life? So to everybody regretting their vote right now, voting has real consequences. So next time, ask harder questions. Read the policies carefully. Listen outside your bubble, Think about everyone else and not just yourself. So thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Have a good one. I'll see you in the next video.